Thank you. Wow, what a stage. Great to be here. So I want to start my presentation in the year 1816. The summer of 1816, to be precise, which is also known as the Summer of Love. Because a curious group of British tourists, including Lord Byron, Percy Shelley and Mary Shelley, descended upon Lake Geneva in Switzerland to celebrate love, supported by copious amounts of alcohol and opium. But maybe more importantly, they celebrated the formation of a counter-movement to the prevailing sentiment at the time, reason and enlightenment. So of course they're known as the Romantic poets, the Romantics, the iconic Romantics, and the movement became known as the Romantic movement. And perhaps no one described it better than the German poet Novalis, who said the following: "To romanticize the world is to make us aware of its magic, mystery, and wonder. It is to educate the senses, to see the ordinary as extraordinary, the familiar as strange, the mundane as sacred, the finite as infinite." Fast forward 200 years later, I often ask myself, actually every morning, what would the Romantics make of our smart, connected age, in which we are expected to be flawless, consistent productivity machines at work, in which we're really used to hearing you can only manage what you measure, in which we're now being told that the algorithmic corporation is the next big thing. So technology now allows us to measure everything. Not only our productivity, but also our relationships, our well-being, our happiness, in fact, the most private aspects of our lives. So it's no surprise that there are now apps such as spreadsheets, I don't know if you're familiar with it, which allow you to monitor and enhance your performance in bed based on data analytics. And if that doesn't help, then you can use breakup text and send an automated breakup text message. Or you can stay away from the whole thing, and you can use a service called Invisible Boyfriend that allows you to rent a fake boyfriend who makes fake phone calls, sends fake text messages, and fake emails. By the way, there's no invisible girlfriend for whatever reason, so it's just Invisible Boyfriend. And very soon we might indeed be falling in love with the machine, with our operating systems, as so beautifully depicted in the movie Her by Spike Jonze, about which the New York Times wrote, "The great question is not whether machines will be able to think. The great question is, will humans still be able to feel?" And indeed, when everything is measured, made familiar, or comfortable, convenient, predictable, where do we find these profound experiences that punctuate our routines? Where are the strangers? Where's the magic? We are at risk of engineering the romance out of our lives. Romance, which perhaps is the ultimate differential in a world of maximizers and optimizers. Now, the good news is we've been at a point of such disenchantment before. 200 years ago, the original Romantic poets touted emotion and mystery as response to the grip of reason and enlightenment. And I believe today we need a new Romantic movement. This time in business, led by business leaders who can be the new Romantics, the new Romantic poets of our time. And this time in response to the disenchantment caused by the datafication, the quantification of everything. Well, who are these mysterious business Romantics and who aren't? So let's start by identifying the enemies of the business Romantic. Enemy number one, the Cynic. The cynic who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing, as Oscar Wilde famously said. The cynic who, like Donald Trump, and little did I know when I put the slide up there about recent events, but Donald Trump who said, it's business, not personal. Enemy number two, the pragmatist. The pragmatist who despises vision and believes that he can incrementally improve the world through a largely engineering-based mindset. Enemy number three, of course, is the cyborg, the superhuman, the transhuman, the idea of a super optimized, over-quantified self. And that notion I think we can find maybe in the hallways of Singularity University or at work at Amazon. So I wanted to also create a positive vision of romanticism in business and identify the design principles of business romanticism. I call them the rules of enchantment. And I want to share 3 of them here with you today. The first one is called Find the Big and the Small. There's a staggering statistic. In 1985, 1 out of 10 Americans in Britain said that they didn't have a close friend with whom they could discuss important matters. In 2005, 1 out of 4 Americans in Britain said that they are lacking a close friend with whom they could discuss important matters. Some people say we're experiencing a crisis of friendship, we live in an age of loneliness. I think it's actually a crisis of intimacy. Intimacy, which really is, as Richard Bach said, the opposite of loneliness. We're craving genuine human connection, being recognized for who we are. And I think there is a surge of very intimate experiences, such as the renaissance of the good old dinner format where we break bread in a ritualistic way with strangers. There's a grassroots phenomenon in the States called Let's Have Dinner and Talk About Death. That became very popular, where a group of 15 strangers gathers around a table and talks about the dignity of a good death. There's also a series called The Dinner Party, where strangers meet to talk about recent losses. And then take this social experiment called the I Am Here Days. It's run by friends of mine in New York, Priya Parker and Anand Giridharadas. They invite friends to spend a Sunday together once a month and to explore a neighborhood of New York City without any digital devices, any distractions, based on the assumption that you create more meaningful, more intimate connections when you spend 8 hours together, including all the inevitable boredom that unfolds, rather than 8 times 1 hour. It's the idea of thick presence rather than being thinly present or thinly distributed. And of course, we can take a leaf from artists who really master that notion of thick presence, such as Marina Abramović in her beautiful exhibition, The Artist is Present at MoMA, where she sat across a visitor at a time for 5 minutes for a total of, I think, 716 hours celebrating intimacy and vulnerability. So imagine what that notion of thick presence might look like in customer experiences that are not modeled on efficiency, or at the workplace where we could have thick days where we lock ourselves into a room with a colleague for 8 hours straight without any conference calls, devices, and just flesh out an idea. Feels nostalgic? Well, maybe it is a nostalgic notion, but nostalgia is very often misunderstood as a longing for a time gone by, when in fact it comes from the Greek term algos nostos, which means literally translated pain from an old wound, and describes the aching for something essential, something profound, a profound truth that we have forgotten of a time that we seem to have ourselves disconnected from. And I think we're seeing more and more nostalgic experience in that sense. For example, of course, the rise of local artisans, the DIY maker movement, which is trying to overcome the alienation between maker and product, or the popularity of the curatorial sites such as Brain Pickings by Maria Popova, that basically celebrate the principle of subjectivity, sending an assortment of articles to subscribers just because she deems them worth reading, offering up an escape path from the algorithmic society, the algorithmic recommendation engine. And of course, we're craving these old-fashioned concierge who treat us as unique individual human beings. But I'm not against technology, and I'm also not against data. In fact, technology offers a great opportunity to create intimate experiences. And I think a beautiful example is the app Forgotify, which lets you discover and play the 4 million songs that have never been played on Spotify. So it uses an algorithm to turn against an algorithmic world. It creates a platform for the strange and for the quirky, for the romance that awaits us at the lonely end of the long tail. So technology and intimacy, I think maybe that's the greatest challenge for us in the next decades ahead. How can we use technology to create moments of intimacy? The second design principle is called keep the mystique. Now, we're inundated with data, and radical transparency is often touted as the ultimate norm. But if that's the case, I believe mystery and secrecy actually make experiences meaningful again. When everything is open, nothing is open. So what do we choose to close? Surprises are maybe the most literal way of creating mystique, and it shall come as no surprise. There's a startup in New York called Surprise Industries that does just that. It offers surprises as a service, or software people would say SaaS. Surprises as a service for individuals and organizations. They even run an initiative called The Experiment, where you can sign up and commit to being surprised at some point during your life. Are you up for that? I don't know. And then there are, of course, package boxes, right? Surprise boxes such as Birchbox, where the surprise is really the product. Or companies such as Secret Cinema, they run so-called mystery screenings, so they do not disclose which movie they're going to show in a surprise location. And what's so interesting about Secret Cinema is not only do they draw thousands of people to watch a movie, but more importantly, it doesn't really matter which movie they're showing. The secret is the product. The mystery is the product. Even the venerable TED conference recently in London hosted an event where they didn't reveal the speakers until they walked on stage. Prime Produce is a startup in New York that runs meetings in the dark. House of Genius is a series that gathers entrepreneurs and professionals without disclosing their identity to tackle and discuss business challenges. It eliminates social bias, but it also adds suspense and delight. Secret rooms are the latest thing in high-tech workplaces in Silicon Valley. And there's even a company called Paracore that created an office designed just for misorientation. I call it employee over-engagement. And at NJJB, the company I work for, we launched a secret society to imagine our company's alter ego. Etsy has a similar thing. It's called Ministry of Unusual Business. No one knows what they do when they meet. They only have the mandate to bring delight and surprise to the workplace. So making the familiar strange again, imagining a different world, taking on multiple identities, those are the trademarks, the hallmarks also of VR and AR technologies. And maybe romantic VR and AR technologies are the new romantic technologies of our new romantic area. So all of these formats create a new form of scarcity. Experiences that we don't fully comprehend, experiences that we never really fully possess, experiences and things that never really last. And they restore friction and doubt in a world of knowledge and total seamlessness. I've recently read a study by the brand agency Lender. It said TMI, too much information, is the new paradigm of doing business. I think NEI, not enough information, is far more intriguing. Knowledge might be power, but not knowing is the more powerful experience. The third and the last design principle is called suffer a little, which highlights that romance is not identical with happiness. There's a dark side. You have skin in the game. You suffer a little bit. But that is counter to most of our workplace and customer experiences, which are designed for instant gratification, for ease of use and convenience. Soon, of course, Amazon, and I hate picking on Amazon today, but we'll deliver everything we desire instantly to our doorstep via drone. And yet, at the same time, why is it that we camp out in front of Apple stores before a new product is launched? Why do we climb up the mountaintops of the Alps just to see the leading bikers of the Tour de France fly by in 15 seconds? And why is it that more than 50,000 people embark on this annual pilgrimage to the Burning Man Festival? I think it's starting next week, actually, again. Just in a week of radical self-expression, barter economy, and essentially losing control. So when you talk to evolutionary psychologists, they will tell you that our brains are still wired for the Stone Age. We still look for these existential, life-threatening, critical events that give us a sense of fitness, a sense of meaning, of being alive. However, we have all but removed them from our modern, domesticated Western societies. Thank God. So what do? Well, we go bungee jumping, skydiving, we run ultra marathons, we travel to exotic countries, or as consumers, we go to IKEA. Right? IKEA has perfected the art of frustrating its customers a little. IKEA has mastered, I think, the principle of frustration. So if you are in the IKEA parkour, of course, it's like the seventh circle of hell. If you then, like me, try to self-assemble a piece of furniture, it's basically a painful reminder of your own existential incompetence. It's an exercise in sacrifice. And that same design principle, frustration, is also part of the equation with loyalty programs, which are never about instant gratification, all about delayed gratification, right? All about permanent unfulfillment. By the way, I read this morning that the happiest stage during your vacation, according to research, is when you plan it. Again, it's a very romantic proposition. Not fulfillment, it's the promise of it. It applies also to nightclubs. There's a nightclub in New York called The Box. And I heard the owner, Randy Weiner, speak at a conference recently. And he was asked, what are the success factors of The Box? And he said, it's very easy. We study very carefully what our customers want, and then we do the exact opposite. Which means that if you buy a ticket, the highest price ticket for The Box, you end up in the kitchen doing dishes. So the more we sacrifice, the more we belong, the more we suffer a little bit, the more meaningful the experience. So ask your customers, your partners, your colleagues to make an effort, frustrate them, let them wait, let them try harder, and reap the ultimate reward, the desire intact, the thrill not gone. So these were 3 rules of enchantment that hopefully illustrated the spirit of new romanticism that I wanted to propose. And I really think that we're seeing a shift away from the smart connected age and a new set of qualities that are becoming important, such as inconsistency, danger over data, subjectivity, and the unquantified self over the quantified self. In order to humanize business, we have to romanticize business, which means not only doing good in the spirit of conscious capitalism and purpose in B Corps, and not only feeling good, which is all about work-life integration and mindfulness, but really feeling more, the whole broad range of human expression. And we're shifting really from a smart to a romantic era, I hope. Yes, we like convenience and comfort, but we love those rebels and contrarians who give us a heavy dose of punch-drunk love, who teach us again to value what we cannot measure and to appreciate the beauty of things that don't scale. And I think that comes with business benefits too. You're not innovative enough? Well, maybe you're not romantic, not daring, not foolish enough to imagine the possibility of another world. Your customers don't love you? Well, maybe you should give them more than just solutions to problems. Your employees are uninspired. Purpose and perks might not suffice. Add some mystery, some drama to the mix. And fight for your right to romance. I really think it's a human right. Extend the territory beyond the map. Use data not just to demystify, but to mystify. Discover without exploitation. And do something that's not only useful, but also more beautiful. I think romantics just want to feel more, and business is our ultimate adventure. So I want to leave you with a quote by the very wise romantic poet William Wordsworth. That is kind of a precursor to Nike's Just Do It. To begin. So how do you begin? How do you become a business romantic tomorrow? Whether you're a card-carrying business romantic, or you're a cynic, or you're a closet romantic. So there's a few things you can do, I think. You can, of course, apply these 3 principles, or one of them, in your organization, in your life, and see what happens. I think something beautiful is going to happen, at least something unexpected. Or you can join the not-so-secret business romantic society that I launched. You can host gatherings and dinners and connect like-minded romantics all over the world. It's still a very small effort. And then lastly, maybe the most modest thing, the smallest thing you can do is just to think of the term romance, romantic, in a different way. Use it in a different way. So often we are in meetings when people say, "Oh, you're romanticizing. You're romantic." And CEOs even say, "I'm a business person. I'm not a romantic," right? And I think that's a huge mistake. I think being a romantic is an integral part of our humanity. I am a business person too. I'm a marketer. But I'm also an unapologetic, unabashed romantic. I believe the world would be a better place if we had more romance in our lives. And I believe that we can find it in and through business. And I hope you do too. Thank you. Oh.